And coming on the show right now is a guy who has a reputation as a pretty big banger, and has a reputation as somebody that, you know, the boxing world is not that eager to face. He had a fight with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., canceled very recently. He does have a fight scheduled July the 15th. He resides in New Jersey. Of course, his name is Pawel Wolak, and he is going to give us some of his time this evening. Welcome to the show, Pawel.
Hi. Good evening. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks.
Now, I was looking at some of your information, and it says you were born in Poland, and
Right.
you are a New Jersey resident. How long were you in Poland? Like, at what point did you move? Did you spend a long time there, or did you move when you were very young?
I was 9 years old when I moved over. Actually, June 8th was my 20 years since I came to the U.S. 20 years, yep.
Oh, so you 9 years old. That's old enough to have some memories. Have you been to Poland since you moved? And tell us the big differences in terms of like the boxing attraction. Like, how big is boxing over there? Was it big when you were young? Do you remember? Has it grown? Because here in the United States, boxing was at a zenith at one point, and now is considered a miscellaneous sport. So give us a little bit of background of boxing in Poland.
Yes, when I was 9 years old, I definitely have a lot of memories. I remember how, growing up, I finished third grade in Poland. When I came over here, I started fourth grade in New Jersey. We moved to New Jersey. We've been in New Jersey ever since. But yeah, I have plenty of memories. I have a lot of family in Poland, plenty of aunts, uncles, cousins. I got a huge family. I'm from a small village, farming village in Poland. But I remember, exactly. I remember, so I've actually visited Poland probably since then at least probably six times. Now I recently have some, aunts and uncles actually came over and actually started living here. But when I was younger, I never really was into boxing. I remember when I was young, I was always into the karate films, or of course, late '80s, early '90s. Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Rocky, all those movies that were coming out, fighting films. In a way, I was trying to be like that. Actually, boxing didn't really come into the radar for me until I got about high school time. I started wrestling in high school, and I was really trying to try to fight mixed martial arts. That was my thing. That's why I started wrestling. I started kickboxing, and then I fell into boxing, just fell in love with it, and just have been doing it ever since. Also, Andrew Galata, of course, early 90s, 96, 97, we had those crazy fights with Riddick Bowe, and then in Madison Square Garden, and then, he was fighting, and then he fought, obviously, Lewis. I can't remember even. He fought a couple of times for the championship, Chris Bird, John Ruiz. So that's when it really started taking off for me. And then I was like, oh, this guy's a Polish guy. He's doing this, so maybe I can do it. And it just started going from that point on. And then I was really interested in and actually was trying to do in my own way what he did. Went to the amateurs and then finally turned pro.
Now, I was ringside covering the recent Tomasz Adamek fight, and the Polish fans were, they were the whole stadium, the whole arena. And
very loud.
Do you experience that too? Do you have the big following? I mean, I'm sure you do. I'm not sure if you ever fought in an arena as large as the Prudential Center yet, but the passion is there no matter where you go, and that must be a special feeling.
Well, I'm nowhere near Thomas Adamek's fan base. I mean, the guy brings in like 12,000 screaming fans for every time he fights at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. I gotta say, I bring some fans. Maybe I probably for this fight, I'm probably trying to get maybe around 500 fans, but they're probably more than 500. I hope, but they're they're loud. They scream, they cheer, they party hard after the fight. My fans are there with me. I have some really loyal fans, which I'm very thankful for.
Yeah, and Pawel Wolak is scheduled to fight on July the 17th in the Roseland Ballroom in New York.
Yes.
Against Devlin Rodriguez. We'll talk about that matchup and that experience in a little while. I want to backtrack a little bit. You talked about how you got into wrestling. MMA was your thing when you first discovered that fighting was what you wanted to do in high school. When did you commit fully to boxing, and how did that commitment come to fruition?
Well, this is the upcoming fight, July 15th. I'm fighting Delvin Rodriguez. He fought for the title a couple of times. Just a solid, tough guy. Tall, rangy guy with a great jab, with a good right hand, very hard right hand. So I'm obviously expecting a hard fight. This is I have a lot to lose in this fight. After the Yuri fight, everything's going very well. People people are, I guess, respecting me a little bit more, which is, listen, you got to, this whole sport is about, you're always good as your last fight. You got to prove yourself constantly. You got to put on good fights. Fans got to like you, simple as that. Listen, Bill Rodriguez is going to be a tough opponent. He's been in there with some of the best fighters. So I'm expecting a tough fight. I'm definitely getting ready for a very tough fight. What was the second question? I forgot what the second question was.
When did you commit to boxing fully? Because you talked about MMA and all of that stuff. And by the way, and we'll put him on in a few, but he might deny it, but the process is a lot different than the content when it comes to the Mad Boxing Genius and this subject. Whenever you mention the word MMA, his skin crawls. He hates it. But I'm sure he's going to deny it. But if you listen to this show and listen and write and read his wonderful blogs on BoxingIQ.com, it says something else. And I'll definitely give him a chance to defend himself in a bit. And he's just going to deny it. But describe the transformation. What made you get into boxing full time? Because it didn't seem like that was your original, niche. You liked the karate and the wrestling stuff.
Listen, it's funny because I still wrestle to this day. I go about once, maybe twice a week. I still use that as my cross training. I roll around every like I said, once, twice a week. When I committed full time to boxing, when I say full time, I still got a full time job, and believe me, I don't. I train hard. I train extremely hard. So obviously, amateurs, when I started getting serious, I got fights. So that was my commitment. And then obviously, once you start going pro, then it's on. Number one, I never want to look, I never want to lose, and I never want to look stupid in front of my fans and in front of my family. That was the transformation for me. Once I started going amateur and then pro, I was really into it, nonstop. And then, now I see that. Obviously, there's a possibility of me, hopefully doing well and winning the actual title, for, winning a world championship. So I'm invested. I'm in it, and I'm going to go as far as the sport could possibly take me. MMA, of course I'm a boxer. MMA is good, but I kind of stopped watching it. To me, it's kind of it doesn't have the same star power as boxing fights do. There isn't the same emotion. So of course, I'm a boxer. I'm going to be a little bit biased, but when it comes to MMA, but it's good. I think it's good for boxing. It's competition. Competition is good for any kind of sport. So boxing, MMA is coming out. Boxing are going to step it up. I think it's good for boxing. Having MMA fights.
Yeah, I personally think in the past year and a half, boxing has surpassed MMA big time.
Yes.
I don't know if the numbers show that, and that's another debate. But let's talk about your amateur record a little bit. I have a lot of pro fighters come on here. A lot of them say they hated the amateurs. Some say it was a good experience. Obviously, it's something that most boxers have to go through. You strike me as a guy who likes to bang and get guys out of there. which is not, it really correlates well
amateur
with
style.
amateur boxing. So take us through
Yeah.
your amateur career.
My amateur career was very short. Basically, I was going to college at the time. I pretty much, I always sparred hard. I trained hard. But, I'm going to say I have had about 50 amateur fights. Honestly, I don't even have my book. I don't know. I went to the regionals. I fought in the gloves twice in New Jersey. Then I fought in the Metros in New York. So I had about 50 amateur fights. But really, I want to, it's hard. It's weird to say for me, but I'm kind of learning on the job. That is why, like, now I've been pro for the past, 5-6 years now, and I'm getting better. I'm coming into my prime. I'm almost 30 years old now, but I'm really learning with the new trainers now, with the sparring. So I think I have a lot more left. I kind of started late. I think I had my first amateur fight when I was like 20, 21 years old. So it's definitely late. I remember going to the gym when I first started going to like Red Gym in Newark. It doesn't exist anymore. But these kids, you're watching these little kids like 8 years old. I mean, they're banging it. 8 years old, 8, 9, 10 years old. And I'm like, and I'm a 20-year-old man. I'm like, man, these little kids are way better than me. You know what I mean? So my amateur career, it really, I fought in about, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 fights. But really, I'm learning on the job as a pro. And I'm, hopefully, I'm getting better and better. I just feel more confident. I now I know how to use my physicality. So amateurs really wasn't for me. And you're absolutely right when it comes to amateurs. It's a point system, especially as you can see a lot of when you go over there in Europe and you fight all over the Olympics. It's that style, that kind of boxing. The amateur boxing is not suited for my style. They just land quick punches, get out the way. As long as you touch, as long as you score a point, it doesn't really matter if you landed the harder punches. All that matters is if you score points. So it's different. Personally, I think I'm better suited for the pros.
And and that's a good thing, is that that's where more money is available for you. And we're speaking with Pawel Wolak on Zeus Boxing Talk. The call-in number is 347-994-1162. So let's jump right to your pro career and your pro debut on July the 10th, 2004, against John Santiago at the Convention Center in Asbury Park, New Jersey. Now, I'm an old school guy. I'm an '80s child. When I hear Asbury Park, I think of the boss, Bruce Springsteen.
The boss.
Don't really think of boxing. What type of a venue is that for boxing, and how was it for your pro debut?
It was listen. I've never been in a ring with no headgear with little gloves like that, so it was definitely a shock for me. But Asbury Park, that fight was right there on the boardwalk. I exit, I think it's 102 off the Parkway, right next to Jersey Shore. So, hey, I had a great time. I got ready for the fight. I fought hard. I won. And then we went out partying. It was great. I can't complain.
Yeah, there you go. And you run off a nice string of victories for yourself. What were some of the highlighted victories for you in, let's say, your first 10 to 15 fights? Where did you meet your biggest challenges? What was the toughest day for you? Because, I mean, you don't go into every fight in the best of shape. Give us a little bit of a rundown of your early fights. What was the toughest for you? What was the easiest for you? Which one did you feel the best in? Give us a little brief overview.
Well, I mean, in the beginning, of course, it's basically about getting your feet wet, especially me. Like I said, I didn't have much more of an amateur experience. I was learning on the job. One of my toughest tests, the early fights were fairly easy, but I had some challenges, of course. I remember going by my first 6-rounder against Kareem Robinson, which is the brother of Ivan Robinson. I think that was my 5th fight, I believe. Actually, it was at East Hanover in New Jersey, very close to my hometown where I'm from. I remember a lot of my friends being at the fight. It was, I remember it was a lot of noise. It was everybody going crazy. But one of my toughest fights was actually against Julio Jean. Julio Jean came off a big win. He beat Emerson Albert. Emerson Albert was like, I'm not sure which country exactly. I think Ghana. No, I'm saying not Ghana. What am I saying? Nigeria, I believe. He was like an Olympian out of Nigeria. And Julio Jean came in. He was tough. I remember he hit me with some good shots. I was all cut up. I was bleeding everywhere. And I remember that was like, wow, there we go. It was welcome to pro boxing. Got hit, very hard. That was my 7th fight, I believe. Then I fought Clarence Taylor, which was he's a hard puncher, a good veteran. You know, that was definitely a test. That was my first, I believe, 10-rounder. 10-rounder. It was a tough fight. So again, you know, it was like a gut check. You know, here it is. You know, pro boxing, a tough fight.